Mass surrender of Boko Haram insurgents in the wake of intensified operations by multinational Joint Task Force.
Major drug seizures with series of operations by National Drug Law Enforcement Agency.
So we're encouraging our people to farm and also remain resolute. And we have created a ministry for nomadic affairs and pastoral affairs in order to bring the Fulani people into the fold of governance.
And agriculture gets a boost as farmers benefit from grants in Niger State.
And on Good Morning Nigeria, today we shall continue our discussion on the task ahead for new cabinet members.
All right, we're moving forward as President Bola Ahmed Tinubu swears in the new ministers today. Nigeria stands at a very critical juncture that demands immediate action and transformative leadership. No doubt, the task ahead for the new cabinet members is so enormous, with virtually every sector of the economy yearning for attention.
That's right, Claire. You remember from our conversation on Friday, our guests were, emphatic about what the task ahead for the ministers should be, actually, and the anticipation surrounding the ministerial list is understandable considering the myriad of challenges that the country faces, with an expansive population struggling with multi-dimensional poverty and alarming security concerns across the country. Now, the incoming ministers have an uphill task ahead.
Absolutely, absolutely. They already have their jobs cut out for them. Now, according to the National Bureau of Statistics, there are 133 million Nigerians living in multi-dimensional poverty, and that underscores the urgency for change, of course, in this sector. Now, the statistics serve as a stark reminder of the pressing need for effective policies and initiatives to uplift millions from destitution.
Of which President Ahmed Tinubu said they are on top of the situation, and equally pressing are the security challenges that persist, which has been taken care of by various security personnel. Now, it is undisputable that Nigeria stands on the precipice of change. Friday last week on Good Morning Nigeria, our guest told us the ministers designate are coming to office at a time when expectations of Nigerians are high and the challenges to tackle are also high.
Indeed, and the guests were also of the view that unbundling some of the ministries and creating new ones is expected to increase more efficiency and also enable government implement its policies. And they were also of the view that though the ministers come with experience and competence, they should be given targets. That is, that the president should, set targets for them and also ensure that they are monitored to ensure that they work within the mandates of the ministries and the renewed hope agenda of the Tinubu administration.
And according to them, the new ministers must avoid the syndrome of democracy devoid of dividends by being focused on serving the country rather than engaging in self-gradization, with virtually every sector yearning for strategies to put the ministers on their toes. They say it's apt.
Well, of course, there were applause for the separation of what the guests call humongous ministries, but they also suggest that then there's need for harmonious interface when necessary for the nation to truly move forward. However, the ministerial list garnered reactions and questions from some Nigerians, like, for instance, perceived inclination towards political appointments rather than technocratic expertise.
No doubt, Claire. Now speculations must arise, but there are bright spots. For example, the appointment of the Minister of State for Gas Resources and Marine Blue Economy aligns with Nigeria's potential as a global gas reservoir. The question everyone is asking now is, as the new ministers assume their roles, how ready or prepared are they to hit the ground running? And how soon can Nigerians begin to see the much-awaited results?
Right, I'm sure, Jimmy, those questions, speak the minds of millions of Nigerians. Very important, and we should also just to add that some of those ministries have also been unbundled, and new ones like the Niger Delta Ministry, the Ministry of Gas, separated from the Ministry of Oil. So we have ministers superintending those areas, and of course. At this point, Nigerians cannot afford the luxury of time, and the gravity of the challenges at hand necessitate, that the ministers work with what Chief Elemi, of Village Headmaster, would call automatic alacrity.
Automatic alacrity.
So, all Nigerians agree.
My mom would say it's double alacrity.
Double alacrity. So the ministers will not just sprint, but sprint and work with double alacrity. That's what all Nigerians expect from them. And of course, they also agree that the new ministers must prioritize, their task at hand, and work, with the immediacy or the demands that Nigeria wants to change.
Just last night we got a press release came out. There's a reshuffle.
Yes, I just said that.
Yes, between
the
cabinets, yes, and
I just said that. So remember last week Friday we started the part one discussions on the part one of the tax ahead of the ministers, the new ministers, and as we said. That topic was not exhaustive in the days and weeks ahead. It will be talk of, the public discussion, media discussions, and also. So we will continue on that premise, from Friday, and again look further and delve further into the tax ahead for the new cabinet members. So on this note, it's a beautiful week, but a sad one for us here, and we'll let you know about that later. I welcome you to Good Morning Nigeria, live on the network service of the NTA. I am Claire Adilabu Abdurrazak.
Indeed, Claire, it's a sad day for us. I am Juma Yusuf. I join Claire in welcoming you to Good Morning Nigeria, the first episode for the week. We're reaching live from our Abuja studios here in the nation's capital. And in the course of the program, we shall take highlights of the morning news, some business news, as well as newspaper review. For now, let's get the morning news with Comfort Ahmadu. Good morning, Comfort.
Good morning, Jumai and Claire. Good morning, Nigerians. President Bola Tinubu has approved the redeployment of Engineer Abubakar Momo from the Federal Ministry of Youth to the Federal Ministry of Niger Delta Development. The Federal Ministry of Youth is to be reassigned to a minister designate soon. A statement from the Special Advisor to the President on Media and Publicity, Juri Ngilali, says ministers designate are located to the Federal Ministries of Transportation, Interior and Marine and Blue Economy have been reshuffled. Adegboyega Oyetola is redeployed as the Minister of Marine and Blue Economy. Bumi Tunjiojo has been redeployed as the Minister of Interior, while Saadatu Alkali redeployed as Minister of Transportation. Furthermore, both ministers of state in the oil and gas sector are now domiciled in the Federal Ministry of Petroleum Resources. With the following designations, Senator Henekin Lukubiri is the Minister of State, Oil, Petroleum Resources, and Ekperipe Ekpo is Minister of State, Gas, Petroleum Resources. And the President approves the renaming of the Federal Ministry of Environment and Ecological Management as the Federal Ministry of Environment. All aforementioned changes take immediate effect by these directives of the President. Away from that, 4 key Boko Haram commanders, 13 main fighters, and a total of 45 family members laid down their arms and surrendered to troops of Sector 3M and JTF in Cross Cow and Baga of Kukawa local government area of Borno State. A statement by the Military Public Information Officer in N'Djamena, Lieutenant Colonel Abubakar Abdullahi, indicates that surrendered items include 7 AK-47 rifles, 1 FN rifle, nearly 440 rounds of various types of ammunition and other weapons of insurgency. Also recovered are 2 transitors, a sum of 213,800 naira. Other personnel effects. Meanwhile, the NGTF has urged the remaining Boko Haram insurgents to embrace peace and surrender as operations intensify. NDLEA has carried out series of operations in the country, resulting in significant drug bust and arrest. In Lagos, a warehouse raid recovered opioids worth 4.8 billion naira that led to the arrest of a suspect linked to a drug baron. Counterfeit of $20 million was also intercepted in Abuja along with the bus driver. Meanwhile, the agency has destroyed cannabis farms in Osun State, conducted multiple drug seizures, as well as arrest of suspects, including a wanted teenage bandit. Now, 640 farmers along cooperative societies have been selected from the 25 local government areas of Niger State to benefit from agricultural inputs and seedlings. The intervention is at the instance of the Niger State government in collaboration with Fadama and CARES, an agro-climatic restoration to boost food production and sustainability in the state.
People to farm and also remain resolute. And we have created a ministry for nomadic affairs and pastoral affairs in order to bring the Fulani people into the fold of governance. To the youth, we cannot continue to blame our people for hunger. We need to also go back to the farms. Agro-climatic resilience in semi-arid landscapes project of the World Bank has a $700 million investment to be tapped and assessed by 19 northern states of Nigeria and the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja.
On education, the FCT Education Resource Center says it has taken a position for transformative approach that will maintain the conduct and standard of various examinations in the nation's capital. Director FCT Education Resource Center, Nemat Abdurrahim, stated this while monitoring the conduct of the 6 FCT Science and Technical Colleges examination.
In the past, we usually allow the students to make choice of each of the school they want to go for their SS1 as far as science and technical colleges are concerned, which is not the practice for other secondary school. We have criteria for each school, and once your child does not meet that school, we will not post them to that school, whether you made that choice or not. So because of this, we've decided that there is no need for asking parents to make, or this child to make a choice during at the point of registration. The choice will be made based on your performance and the laid down criteria.
It's very nice. I like the environment. I like the questions. The way the examination is going on. It's just that the time is a little bit stubborn, but we are sure that all of us will pass.
Those are some of the news highlights.
Nigeria is one of the highest producers of leather and finished leather products in Africa. In a study carried out by the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, it is projected that the leather value chain is extensive, as it includes animal husbandry, tanneries, finished leather products, and leather product marketing. Nigeria's leather and leather product industry currently employs about 750,000 workers, with 500,000 workers in the finished leather goods sector. Today, Nigerian semi-finished and finished leather have the highest patronage in Italy, Spain, India, South Asia, and China. The NESG projection also indicates that the Nigerian leather industry has the potential to increase its earnings by 70% by 2025.
Nigeria's leather sector has a very robust value chain, but it is sadly highly informal. From the guy skinning the cows and the rams and the goats to all the value chain up to the level of finished leather products. We have a very strong value chain that we are not harnessing.
Key players in the sector says optimizing the value chain, the sector will provide more employment, improve foreign exchange earnings, and boost economic growth.
Let government support us so that we do better than, a small youth can go out and, enter all these criminal problems. So all of them, we calm down one place, manage this area you can see, so that everybody have something doing.
They therefore appeal to the government on the need to ban informal export of leather to avoid shortchanging Nigeria. With Business News, Alika Okwanachi, Arua.
Thank you, Alika, for that business package. Next is newspaper review.
Chukwudi Okodegbada is right here with us for the newspaper review. Chukwudi, good to see you.
Hello, Claire. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Joe May.
Good morning.
How you doing?
Fine.
See you as usual.
All right, let's begin with the Punch newspaper. And the Punch has on its front page, federal government prioritizes economy, security as ministers take oath today. It comes with two riders. President's 8-point agenda to guide appointees. Ministers complete documentation at SGF office. Tinubu renames Environment Ministry, appoints Niger Delta Minister, and reassigns Oyetola and others. And you see a cross-section of the faces of the new ministers there putting pen to paper. And farmers abandon farms. 23 Sokotos and Farakebi LGs under bandits. That's on page 8. U.S. court jails Nigerian, others for $2.6 million fraud. It's on page 45. And Plateau police arrest man for cutting off farmer's hand on page 5. And just above the nameplate, Nigeria loses 249 billion naira in July as oil output drops. You can read more about it on page 25. And CBN loan to manufacturers, aviation firms rise to 5.6 trillion naira. And in Niger, ECOWAS rejects junta's 3-year transition plan. And details of that on page 18. Chube?
Yes, let's quickly go to the Nation newspaper. And above the mastheads, the story that Claire read and papers. ECOWAS rejects Niger junta's transition plan. They must hand over now and return to the barracks. That's the message from ECOWAS. Labour backs tenure system for public sector directors. You find the details on page 8. Inside what we are about to discuss this morning, agenda for ministers, part 2, you find it on page 17 and 19. And just below the masthead, banks, BDCs in talks to boost dollar liquidity. You find the details on page 4. NAMA conducts validation flights ahead of ICAO audit. That is on page 6. And the picture story you see there, some Boko Haram fighters with members of their families who surrendered to troops of Sector 3 Multinational Joint Task Force in Cross Kawu and Baga, Kukawa local government area of Borno State. Zulum presents 10 million relief package to wounded soldiers. You find the details on page 7. Tinubu reassigns Oyetola to Marine, Momo to Niger Delta, with riders Alkali Tunji Ojo, Lokpobiri, EPO affected in minor shake-up. Abuja, Agog for ministers' induction. Find all the details on page 4. Why bank CEOs were barred from foreign trips. You find it all on page 4. Chukwudi.
Yeah, thank you. I want to talk about the reallocation of positions. Probably the presidency has looked into what it did and discovered that some fine-tuning has to happen and has gone that way, which is quite commendable. I was at a training on Thursday, and one of the trainers said he would consider that the person who's going to be in charge of youths should be truly youthful. So if I get to hear that a 45-year-old or a 40-year-old, you know, eventually, that would be something. He's not going to go about, or she is not going to go about distributing high five on the streets. But youths like people they can identify with. Is half the communication done when youths find somebody whom they find agreeable, you know, on citing such a person? So maybe something could be done in that direction.
I think it goes beyond being agreeable.
Okay.
There are a lot going for the youth. There's strength, you know, dexterity. The youths now have quite a lot of experience
and opinions,
you know,
about issues.
Yes, and
multiple opinions. They are really 3/4 of the population.
Yes.
Very productive base for this country.
Exactly.
Come to think of it,
they command the demographic strength.
Yes,
you know, even in terms of voting bloc, you see the youths have the advantage. So it's not just agreeing with fellow youth, but that they have the pool, they have the numbers, they have the strength, they have the expertise. Right now, if you look at the composition of the new ministers, I mean, a 36-year-old lady is the youngest, you know, and you have 36, 39, 40. These are you know the hands that will now, you know, lead or steer the ship of this administration.
Yes.
So a lot is expected from them, and we want to again thank, you know, the administration, the past administration, for signing on the Not Too Young to Run.
I like that.
Yes. So it has given impetus.
Yes, to come out and, you know, air their views and what they want, and it's making impact actually.
Politics is so, you know, pot-bellied, blooming-looking.
We need a paradigm shift.
It's erroneous.
Yes, when it comes to politics.
Please, grey hair is still needed in politics.
Yes.
Biden and then Trump.
Yes.
What is the age bracket?
Yes.
Institutional America does not actually think like that.
No, they don't.
Because whether you're a man, whether you're 80 or whatever, the institutions of America will hold you in check.
Yes, precisely.
That's
it. They provide the roadmap in terms of experience.
Yes.
And you know, my final thought on this is that if we say that the future, you know, of this country belongs to the youth, we might as well, I mean, allow them to...
It truly belongs to the youth, whether you like it or not. You know. Every day takes you closer to 6 foot underground. It's okay. We don't want to die yet. I'm Chooks the boy. ECOWAS rejects Junta's 3 years transition plan. Let them keep their foot on the fire. Whatever. There won't be a shooting war. I know there won't be. I think there won't be. But it is necessary to keep applying that pressure diplomatically. Keep on squeezing. Make them know it is out of fashion, not just out of fashion, it is not functional for Africa to be led by people we didn't vote for. I don't know how well they've done all these years of strings of coups, you know.
I always, I've said it here, Chooks, that the last, in international relations, the last option for dealing with conflicts such as the one in Niger is force, use of force. That will amount to war by implication, use of force. And that is if and only if all other avenues have been exhaustively exhausted.
That's it.
You know, so I think what ECOWAS is doing at this moment is also to explore and re-explore you know, the other peace initiatives.
As we said, these are our kith and kin.
Yes.
So nobody wants to kill their relatives.
Precisely.
But we must make some points very clear.
Yes, and we don't want to be drawn into any war orchestrated outside, you know, the sub-region.
Yes.
Yes. So
Africa should start self-thinking and self-governing and directing its own destiny.
That is the crux of
very
ECOWAS.
Important.
That is the crux of ECOWAS.
That's the point.
That is the basis for which ECOWAS was created, to ensure that Africa as a bloc, I mean, West Africa sub-region as a bloc, you know, acted together and at the end of it become ECOWAS of people.
That's it.
Not ECOWAS of states now, ECOWAS of people.
Claire, quickly, one that concerns our retired persons here, Abia to clear salary arrears by December. I like it because what happens to our
Is that news, or Jukes, the boy? Is
no,
that
it
news?
is. We must keep talking about it.
Is it news?
Some people have died waiting for their gratuities and pension. It is sacrilege. We can't get tired of talking about something that has not been. I am happy now. My state Delta, I hear that there's progress towards clearing a backlog, which I was reliably informed dates back to Uduagha times as governor. You know, so the blame on Okowa, the blame on the governor before Okowa, you know, was
when you come to think of it,
yes.
How much is even the pension? Some people collect as little as 5,000 naira a month.
I agree.
That's another matter.
Shouldn't that be reviewed? It's not the payment. There should be a review of pension, because somebody can be 80 years old and collecting 5,000 naira. And the process of collecting that 5,000 naira is so. Yes.
Jume, look at this. Look at this, and it's quite interesting, and we know where our problem, you know, it's going. In July, we lost 249 billion naira because of the drop in oil
output. But the good news is that I hear Shell is, I don't know the exact location now, Shell is re-engaging effort there to start pulling from the soil again.
Yes.
I think so.
But this, again, the new Minister of Oil, that's the petroleum downstream, has some duty. And anyway, we're going to be discussing this in detail.
Work to do there.
Claire, I said something the other day, leaked memo, DSS arrests Abuja Kaduna train manager.
Oh yes, it's right inside.
Remember, we were having a little, I said, there are certain things you don't put out.
Yes.
I said so.
Yeah.
This is kind of, you know, restating my position on that.
Yeah, sorry, I just, because you mentioned it.
Although it's an investigation, the story is not attributed.
No,
so let's
here.
not go so bold about it.
No, the story is here.
It is there, but it's not attributed. Okay. Yes, in journalism, attribution is very important to us.
Okay, so let's leave that out. But here it says leaked memo: DSS arrest Abuja Kaduna train manager. So the details are all there.
Yeah, yes.
You know, but
yes.
So I don't know. Jume, do you have other stories?
Surrender of Boko Haram to the multinational joint task force. Usually this is the season when they surrender, because it's raining, there's no food, they are hungry, the children are hungry, so they have no option than to surrender. And
Jume, this your analysis is putting me on the edge of this chair. Yes, are you saying they're not succumbing to kinetic and non-kinetic?
The way things are working out now, Maiduguri is there's a new generation of children coming up in Maiduguri, and you wonder who their parents are. You know, attacking people on the streets, you know, knifing them. Yes, teenagers, 11, 12, 13, you don't understand. There's so much work to be done in the rehabilitation process. It's not just receiving them, counting the number of arms they brought in, and then with their children and all that. Most time they bring and dump the family and go back. Once the area is conducive for them to go back, they go back. It's a dangerous thing. We can't keep accepting them. There must be something that should be done.
Yes, I agree with you.
Yes, coming from that axis, whenever I call home, different stories every day. It's dangerous. You can't even hold your phone in your hands. It's a dangerous situation. Yes, and we hear that the governor is on top of it. He has been encouraging our military with a lot of incentive, like now 10 million relief package. But something needs to be done. There should be more work in the rehabilitation process.
Voluntarily, you know, surrender. Yes. They're supposed to go through processes. They call the 4R processes. you rehabilitate them, you reconcile them, you reintegrate them into the society. Most times we discover that the last part, 2 parts, are not done. They're not properly reintegrated. So sometimes, yes. So sometimes we discover that when the process is not complete, there's tendency that there's a reversal. There's a tendency for reversal. So I don't know what may have happened between the time of President Goodluck Jonathan and the last administration.
We need to send you back there.
Well, it's
so that you give us the latest.
It will be what going to find out. It will be what's going to find out.
The first line of news is a reporter on the spot.
In 2016, the now director of news, Muhammad Ali, and I were sent to Maiduguri, and that's why
I saw that report.
Yes, that's why I met Jumaine for the first time.
That was a good one.
And I had these very lovely big akara bowls, and I made lots of friends. But we saw for the first time.
You know what you did?
Yes.
That I liked? You humanized the soldiers a bit. We saw the human side of soldiers.
Yes.
Good report.
Yes, thank you,
Good reports should be coming on all this insurgency in the Northeast.
Just 1 minute. A bad scare last night. I went to the woman who gives us rice. Hey, I'm sending 40K to you. I said, no, it's 46 now. 3 days ago, she told me it's 46. I sent her 36 in the evening yesterday and said, so I'll send you the remaining 10. Say, oh God, no, it's now 12K you send me. Between 3 days ago and now, another 2K has been added.
Wow, there's so much hunger out there.
Well, it defies the law of gravity. When things go up, it never comes down. Check the boy. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
So much
I like the way you guys have domesticated newspaper review. You're now talking on the ground, not this elitist. I love it.
That's what women do. When women take charge. All right. Okay, choose the boy.
Thank you so
We'll see
much.
you again tomorrow.
Thank you.
So we'll take a break. When we return, our conversation will begin. Don't go away. You're welcome back, and before our conversation begins, let's us show you some excerpts from our last conversation on the tax ahead for new cabinet members, put together by our correspondent Tope Alabi.
We had youth and sports had always been our system, Ministry of Youth and Sports, as if the only thing you expect young people to do is to participate in sports. Now we are separating youth and sports and telling, now what we need to do is a youth development agenda that prepares our young people to be better leaders in this tomorrow.
Innovation and all that.
So now to make it possible, we have a ministry. She said about cross-cutting. There are definitely they cannot work in silos. They have to work, cooperatively. We have a ministry in charge of youth. So, then that ministry will leverage on the activities of the Ministry of Sports, for example, to encourage young people to excel in sports. That same ministry will leverage on the activities of the ministry in charge of creative industry to encourage young people to be creative.
For the first time under this government, that they now have an idea of how much people we consume in terms of fuel or diesel on daily basis. Because in the past, people said the number couldn't have been right. But because of this subsidy, it was a scam and people were benefiting and fictitious figures were being given. And these petroleum resources that's supposed to have very clear marker statistical information, they don't have. So they all thrive is the most lucrative ministry anybody will want to serve. Because you can be there sitting down, the dollars are rolling and the money. No, not this time around. People, Nigerians are upset, they are frustrated, and they want to see development. So first, let us really know what I've never seen a tour or any of these ministers go to see those refineries, find out firsthand what is happening, and then find out how we can solve it so that immediately, and I mean within this year, this importation of fuel stops.
The issues about Nigeria's development are so humongous that you need a hybrid of measures to deal with them. Now, let me say this, that for a long time, there has been an unrestrained, gradual but progressive descent and relapse into a tailspin in this country. And that's why I said earlier that the hunger and the hope for development, the expectation by Nigerians is quite palpable. And it goes around, there's no area of the economy, there is no sector of the economy today that is not in a dire strait, that is not in a hurry to develop, that people are not waiting to see, creativity and development. So what we have seen so far, and like we've said, there are close to 12 or 13 new ministries, either in part or in whole. And I think all these are in an effort to see that we, craft a model of development that will be a departure from the past.
All right. Thank you, Tope Alabi, for bringing us those excerpts from our discussion last week, Friday. And the guest, of course, speaking on the tax ahead for the new ministers. Like we said, we're continuing on this discussion today, and we have our guests here in the studio and joining us via Zoom. Let me welcome to our studio former Minister of Communication, Barrister Adebayo Shutu, on Good Morning Nigeria.
Very good morning to every Nigerian.
It's good to have you. It's been a while.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm still kicking.
And we also have joining us via Zoom from Gusau, Professor Kabir Mato is a political scientist. Professor Mato, it's good to see you once again. It's been a long while.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so gentlemen, once again, welcome to Good Morning Nigeria. And so much is happening. Discussions are going on. Let's start with the former Minister of Communication, Adebayo Shutu. First of all, more ministries have been unbundled. Petroleum has been unbundled into oil and gas with different ministers. We now have, contrary to fears, the Ministry of Niger Delta, in addition to the Ministry of Digital Technology, Marine, and all that. Give us your perspective on these ministries, new ministries, first of all.
Well, I want to start by congratulating all Nigerians that, for once we have a president who really prepared to govern Nigeria in the 21st century. Governance must be a very dynamic thing because challenges are ever evolving, new challenges, and we must have people who are proactive enough to, prepare agencies and new ideas to face these challenges. You would agree with me that, having regard to the new ministries, for instance, one of the newest ministries we have is the Ministry of Marine and Blue Economy. We have had agencies like Nigerian Ports Authority, a number of others, which deal with, the sea economy, as it were.
Shippers Council.
Shippers Council, so many others. Unfortunately, they were all lumped up together under Ministry of Transportation. Whereas this is a very wide area which has capability of bringing billions of Nigeria, to the economy of the country. So I believe that we must commend the president for thinking out of the box and for bringing in these new ideas. I am also happy that a number of the new ministers who we know are people who can really add value. Of course, there must be some kind of a retreat to bring in experts who are not ministers to really brief these new ministers about the potentials and the possible challenges and the possible prospects of these, new ministries. It is very important that we must have, they must have a week or two, a retreat, with the president himself present and with all the new ministers, with people who will come in and really, create new initiatives, new ideas, new methods of attending to Nigeria's problems. So I think we must, the president deserves to be commended, and For us as Nigerians, we must thank God that we have a new president who is really prepared to run a 21st century Nigeria.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so much. Let's link up with Professor Kabir Mato, political scientist, and I'm sure you must be following all the news coming out and expectations of Nigerians on the new ministers as they assume their roles. They will be sworn in today, actually, and then they will now go for a retreat. Let's have your expectations and, what do you think this set of ministers will bring on board in governance?
Well, thank you very much, Dumai. Again, good morning, Nigeria. I have high hopes in the sense that I've always believed that the ascendancy of Bola Tinubu to the presidency of this country, if properly manicured, will have a lasting impact on governance and administration of Nigeria. A very fact that has been severely lacking as far as the history or the immediate history of this country is concerned. Yes, the cabinet is constituted and postings also have been made. We now see why each and every minister is going to. But there is one basic fact that underlies the general state of affairs in Nigeria today, and that is the very serious economic reforms that are being introduced by this administration by way of perhaps the removal of subsidy on petroleum products, one, and secondly, also allowing the Nigeria currency to float within the international money market. These two particular events that have been introduced by this government, in my view, as progressive as they may be, of course, are yielding sufficient hardships and difficulties which you can see across the length and breadth of the country. And I do believe that no matter how effective the president might be without a very sound and robust cabinet, it's not likely that we're going to get out of these woods, as soon as possible. So back to your question, Jumai, I think the major expectations that Nigerians have today is how is this new cabinet going to help the president in resolving these immediate problems they are facing in terms of cost of living, and how reassuring is it going to be that as soon as possible we are going to get the expected outcomes, or at least we're going to start getting the expected outcomes of these very radical reforms, that have been introduced by the president, which I personally do believe that it remains the only way to go if really the Nigerian economy and Nigerian government especially is to be able to be effective and efficient in the delivery of what Nigerians love to call, dividends of democracy. So the hopes are really very high. There is a lot of skepticism at the moment because of the state of economic reality that people find themselves in. And I do hope that, a list of 45 ministers, a lot of them very sound, a lot of them very new. We have seen a lot of innovation on the part of the president, especially bringing young boys and girls that did not have any previous public experience in the past. People do criticize that. I don't belong to that category. I see most of the developments that we have in this country today having started from 1960 when we achieved a flag independence, as barely a product of those very young men and women who took up the responsibility of managing the Nigerian state after independence and now. But, we were faced with the situation where you needed to be 50 or 60 years before you were appointed into sensitive position. This has been changed, and I hope that these young boys and girls that the president has nominated and appointed as ministers will also try to, use, that exuberance, that vibrant exuberance that is in the nature of the young person to be able to, move the respective ministries that they find themselves in forward as one way of ensuring that, development is achieved and attained in Nigeria in the shortest future. So I say that the expectations on the part of the citizens are really very high. And I hope that those who are appointed will also have you know, the feelings, you know, that a lot of people have. It's not going to be the party as usual. Your appointed minister and your family and friends celebrate because they will come and see you in the ministry so that they can also begin to cut their own shares of what you call the national cake. This must be a dedicated service to the nation. Nigeria is at the crossroads. We are facing tremendous problems, you know, from economic, social, you know, and to some extent political. And I believe that the political brinkmanship of President Tinubu, and I also do hope that we are not going to have a very dastardly cabal, as is common with, you know, presidency and even governors in this country over the last time, where a few individuals will sit without necessarily producing so much, but then dictating too much, you know, on the pattern that the political economy of the nation takes. We are hopeful, and I call on all Nigerians to give the new cabinet the necessary support that is required in order to move us out of this very you know, serious situation that we find in. I also pray that the president will have the good health, you know, to continue to, well, of course, his age is there. Age is a factor, whether we like it or not. But we do hope that he will have the good health and he will have absolute grasp of, you know, the membership of his cabinet so that he can effectively and efficiently direct, you know, their affairs, and then Nigeria will be the better for it.
Professor Kabir Mato, to all your prayers, we say amen. And it's also interesting that you described the first few policy, you know, initiatives taken by the president as progressive but radical. That's, of course, the economic reform, you know, removal of subsidy, and the CBN currency unification, you know, and all the impacts. We will come presently to discuss the context of the policies and, of course, the drivers of these policies and what strategies they should probably, you know, initiate in a short while. But you have been a former commissioner, just as the barrister Adebayo Oshute here was also a former minister. And what we are looking at is the tax ahead for these ministers. I'd like, Barrister Shitu, for you to share with us, you know, maybe some issues that probably, you know, prevented you or presented as obstacles or challenges in as a minister in your carrying out your responsibilities, and how were you able to navigate them?
Especially with family and friends.
Well, we have different people have different challenges.
Yes.
What's important is that a public officer must be independent-minded. He must provide leadership. Like the late Chief Obafemi used to say, a leader must lead, he must not be led. One must have the vision of ensuring that, or remembering that at the end of the day, your name is, you know, on the line, you know, in the way you manage your affairs. It is unfortunate that perhaps because of our long history of pervasive poverty, everybody who gets into office has the burden of, you know, his friends, relations, and all of that, seeing it as their own time to chop. And so they expect you to go outside your duties and powers to do the unimaginable. Every one of them expects you to turn them into millionaires within the period of, you know, being in office. You know, but so one must really be very diligent. One must also be vigilant in ensuring that you don't do the unexpected, officially unexpected things. You know, so that is one. Number two also is, more often than not, we have had leaders who do not, I mean, when they appoint people into offices, they hardly provide any supervision. And because of that, hijackers, you know, come in to hijack the process, and that creates a lot of, you know, problem. So I want to appeal to, you know, on this score, I want to appeal to Mr. President that he must continue to provide leadership by being vigilant, by being sensitive to, you know, the performance of his ministers. This is very, very important. And I'm happy that he's been, you know, governor for 8 years, So he ought to know, you know, what one is saying. That
were you sorry? Did you have a clear court mandate, you know, from the president during your time? And how were you able to navigate the bureaucracies, the bureaucratic dynamics that played?
Well, at times, you know, a man may be happy. I mean, a public officer may be happy. For instance, I was very happy and lucky. When I became minister, I had a fantastic permanent secretary who knew his onions and was very supportive in guiding and advising. And if a public officer gets such, you know, advantage, he must not see himself as a Mr. Know-all. He must, you know, take advice, particularly when once he's sure that the advice is being given in good faith. And he must also be ready to learn on the job as quickly as possible. We have had situations, like I said, where, you know, within the presidency, you know, you have people who are prepared to ensure that your loyalty is not to the nation but to they as individuals within the presidency. It has happened, in the recent past. So a minister must have access. I mean, and the president must ensure that ministers have sufficient access to him and not, you know, cut them off. A president must not believe that because he has given people jobs, automatically they would, be living up to expectation. That is why it is very important for supervision, very effective supervision, and also periodic provision of reports of performance. That must happen. Well, usually it is the office of the chief of staff who is the, sifting, the go-between. If you are lucky to have a chief of staff who is not self-serving, who does not see himself as the alternative to a president, who, tries to just see himself as just a conduit for Mr. President to, get feedback as to what goes on. But again, Mr. President must always go, even over and above a chief of staff, to get information. Once a president appreciates this, that, you cannot always trust or rely on those who give assignments, either as chief of staff or as ministers, then you will find other means of getting information. Because it is possible for even the president to be blocked, from really getting
to know things.
Yes. This is very, very important. So there must be, several means of getting information on each and every subject matter. Because at the end of the day, it is Mr. President, who, takes the blame, if there are problems.
Of course.
So for me, I believe that all our ministers, particularly once they are sworn in and they assume their offices, maybe within every 3 months, there should be, meetings outside the main, Federal Executive Council, where people would come and tell Mr. President what is happening in their different ministries, what are the challenges, what are the prospects, and the president must also be intelligent enough to be able to absorb and decipher the wheat from the chaff and ensure that appropriate instructions are given as at when due.
Well, we had in the previous administration and even during President Jonathan's administration, we had town hall meetings where ministers come out to say what they've been doing and how far they've gone.
I don't think that's what.
I know. I'm trying to get. I'm trying to land here. You understand?
Yes.
So that's another dimension.
Well, it is. But town hall meetings do not actually represent.
No, what I'm saying is there should be a report after the town hall meeting to be presented to the president on how the ministries have been functioning. Has that not been done after town hall meetings?
Well, you see, town hall meetings are more political gatherings where, you don't really get substance there in town hall meetings. People come, there's euphoria, the minister is talking, the town criers, all kinds of people gather, and what they are asking us is, in Yoruba, it is said, Kile Mufawa. What did you bring for us?
Barrister Shittu, thank you for your inner thoughts. Yes, Jume, you want to bring in?
Yes, Kabir Mato. Kabir Mato, you've heard the experience of the former minister there and how he deals with issues, and he has raised a lot of pertinent questions on how the presidency and the ministers can work in sync together to ensure that whatever policy is out there can be, implemented right by the ministers. Now, let's get your opinion. You brought a little bit about history. At the beginning of this great nation, young people were there to, transverse the waters of administration and all that. Now, the young people here in Nigeria have been asking, they've been yearning for opportunities, and now they've got it. What would they do with it? Or what should they do with it?
Well, I think they should read history. One of the major tragedies that we suffer as a nation today is the absence of history in our institutions. We don't know ourselves, we don't know where we are coming from, so it's difficult for us to actually know where we are. Talk less of planning effectively on where to go to. I think it's a good opportunity, and I hope that this opportunity will not be misplaced, in the sense that from 1999 to date, we have seen the ascendancy of several young people into prominent positions of authority, especially as governors of state. But at the end of the story, the situation was so pathetic to the extent that, the principle of young breed and, catch them young, as it used to be in 1999 to 2003 and so on, so it became more or less, a sad story. I think the opportunity that, President Tinubu has given these young people now is enormous, and they need to take it seriously. One of the things that a lot of young people have, which people of my age really do not have, is the capacity, to be thoroughly exuberant and take the bull by the horn. The young man, the young woman have this capacity to take the risk. They, of course, require the direction of, the older ones like me and Adebayo Shittu and the president. I think one of the most important things that President Tinubu needs to do is not to shy away from responsibility, as we have seen in the past. You don't just appoint a minister. I like the description that the former Minister of Works, Babatunde Raji gave in his, description of President Buhari and President Tinubu. He said President Buhari is that leader, is that coach that when he teaches you, he coaches you, and he selects you to be part of his team, and you are there playing, he will just go back to the shed and sit down, believing that you are going to play to specification and victory will come at the end of the day. While on the other hand, President Tinubu is a coach that stands and keeps moving. If you misfire, you touch the ball in the wrong direction, he will shout and tell you this is what to do. And I think that's what leadership really requires at this material time in Nigeria, especially if we place it against the backdrop of, what has been happening. From the time of President Jonathan, I'm aware that, federal government did, come out with specific instructions that ministers, only a few ministers could access the president at any point in time. It also happened during the last government of, President Buhari, where I will tell you that every minister will have to pass through the chief of staff and nobody sees the president. This reduces the capacity of these individuals that are manning the various departments and agencies of government for them to be able to effectively communicate with you as a leader. I hope President Tinubu will have sufficient energy to listen to all his ministers, not even ministers, but critical officers in government that will come and report specific matters that will not have to go in between him and the chief of staff and so on and so forth. Where human beings, Adebayo Shittu, spoke about, a kind of chief of staff that will be fair, that will be strong, that will be able to, serve as an efficient connecting road between the ministers and the president. I think the president should have. I served, for instance, in a cabinet in Kaduna in the last 8 years, where intellectual debate determined public policy. And as long as you don't have that, I think we will have a long way to go. You rigorously debate every particular item on the agenda to the extent that you even change the perspective, of the chief executive. You convince your colleagues who are able to show, the superiority of the argument that you are bringing on the table, and at the end of the day, it enriches the quality of public policy and its resultant consequences on general governance and administration in the particular political environment. And I want to think that that's what Bola Tinubu needs at this material time. There must be this robust, discussions. There must be. I hope it's not going to be caged by the paraphernalia of power in the name of security, and so on and so forth. And those who should see him are not able to see him. Those who should talk to him are not able to talk to him. Those who should comment on whatever policy direction or action that desires to be talking, should be able to see him, discuss this with him and the team, so that at the end of the day, the best output is put on there for the Nigerian, in order to have a better society. We really are in big shit. And I believe that a lot of these young boys and girls that are in this cabinet are vibrant enough, they are sufficiently educated, they can take a lot of risks. The function of the older ones, like, the former special advisor, communication, Dele Alaki, and the rest of them that are relatively old in the cabinet, should be able to guide a match breaks, during council meetings and various interactions, so that the young ones will not be swayed away by the excessive exuberance of their age. But they also see tremendous energy, and I believe if they are guided properly, there will be capacity, and in not too distant future, we should be able to see governance and administration working smoothly in Nigeria, and that will make the rest of us happy. And I believe, if they are given the chance and they are properly guided, we are going to really, have a good administration.
Professor Mato, thank you again. It's always good to be on the optimistic side. Optimism does not kill. It only, it saves a lot of headache and all that. So we share in your optimism. We're back here to the studio, and Barrister Adebayo Shutu, during the first part of our conversation, the issue of competence and capacities of the ministers, was laid to rest. I mean, the guests all agreed about what the ministers were bringing to the table, whether as a politician, as an ex-governor, you bring in your administrative skill and capacity plus experience. As a technocrat, of course, you bring in your intelligence and your knowledge and skills. So there's no doubt about that. But I like the way some reports have really categorized the different sectors into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, trade, steel, oil and gas, agriculture, economy, and security, all going to the different geopolitical, members that come from those zones. But without looking down on any of the sectors, for you, given the fact that Nigeria has been described, by various adjectives, poverty capital, we are 133 million, multidimensionally poor. Just today we heard that some, local government areas are still under the, serious attack from bandits and other. What sectors are critical at this point in time? And what policy enunciations should the ministers, assigned to those sectors be pursuing?
Well, I want to say with all due respect that there's no sector which is not important.
I did say that.
Because if they are not important, the ministries will not be created for them. A lot of people will see sports as just sports. But you could also have sports business and make a lot of money from it. Even in the cultural sector, in the amusement sector, I know entertainment and amusement. I know Sir Musawa. If I pray God would grant him the wisdom to really make the best out of it. So as far as I'm concerned, every sector is important. But having said that, this marine and blue economy sector, and of course communications, innovation, and digital economy sector,
yes,
are two major areas that And I'm happy that people who are asked to handle them, I pray they will be able to do the best. For instance, in the communications and digital economy sector, it is possible to create millions of jobs within the shortest possible time. In the blue economy sector, of course, it has always been a gold mine which nobody have really given it the desired attention. But now things are changing. So as far as I'm concerned, it depends on the individual who is, being given the responsibility to handle it. If they can think outside the box, if they can also consult very widely with experts in the various fields, of course, Nigeria would be the better for it.
Okay. I'm just trying to go ahead with I'm just trying to get the name of the balloon. That's Bumi Tunji Ojo.
Yes.
Yes. Well, Tunji Ojo is no more the.
Okay.
Yeah, we've seen the result over
Oyetola. Oyetola. I hope. I think he's an.
That's Boyega Oyetola.
Yes, he's an insurance expert. I hope that he will. Even if he has
what competence does he bring to that?
I wouldn't know. I know he's an insurance man. I know also he's been a governor and he's been in business. You don't have to have had prior expertise in a field. If you are sufficiently intelligent, if you are sufficiently exposed, and if you seek for and rely on the advice of experts in the field, you could make, a whole lot from it.
Okay, so Professor Mato, this is a new ministry, Marine and Blue Economy, and here we are having a former governor with, of course, a wealth of administrative experience and skills. What is the weight of responsibility does he bear?
Well, just like Mr. Rebashitu rightly said, President Tinubu was not a president, but he's there today. And he started well, and we hope he's going to be able to also, better than he is doing now. So you don't really have to have a prior experience in a particular sector for you to be able to be efficient and perform, the way that optimally, I would say. I think Chief... the former governor of Osun State, who is posted there, should have the capacity to be able to run it. It's not per se a new venture altogether within the Nigerian space. It's simply removing some responsibilities from a very large spectrum of ministry that you used to call Ministry of Transportation that was too busy, trying to handle very serious critical government agencies and parastatals into now an area that is carved out to specifically handle matters related to marine and blue economy. And that's to say institutions like the Maritime Authority, which is now called NIMASA, Shippers Council, Nigerian Port Authority. And these are very major institutions within the former Ministry of Transportation. And I believe as it's being, forecasted by Nigerians that obviously this is a new sector that if properly governed, if properly administered, will go a long way. And not just, people look at it specifically from the perspective of revenue generation to the nation. But beyond that, creating a lot of employment, safer waters, opportunities, for the country and the citizens, and so on and so forth. So I believe sincerely that that's one area, that with sufficient money. One of the major, problems that governance in ministries and other major agencies, faces in this country today is this issue of operating in silo mentalities. Government must operate as an entity. There must, be created some measure of synergies between the various agencies, departments, and ministries of government, so that there will be the necessary transparency and openness that will allow free flow of information, and expertise, across the spectrum of these agencies, so that they are more efficient, they are more productive, and they are more beneficial to the society in general. So I am very hopeful that these innovations that came with the creation of such ministries like the marine and blue economy on one hand, and even the separation of gas with petroleum resources is a very important thing. Gas is the future of Nigeria. We have seen the way the international affairs, especially in the heat of this war between Russia and Ukraine, the way the importance of gas has effectively manifested, and the scarcity and the lack of it is really touching on the lives of people within the industrial world. So if we are able to tap the resources of gas that we have in this country and fully deploy the use of these resources at the international level, I tell you that we are not going to continue to rely on oil or such a thing as a major of Nigeria economy, and more so that the cost of energy globally is rising. It's becoming unbearable for people to live easy life as it used to be. Arising from that, I think it's also a useful innovation that we have a specific ministry that is dealing with gas now, interfacing with petroleum, and I believe under the headship and direction of the president. I hope the president will not sleep over it. Will have the sufficient time, energy, and capacity to be able to provide the leadership, and all the cartels and the economic recklessness that we see happening in the oil sector will cease. After all, if the cartel and the racket that has pervaded the Nigerian oil sector was not there, this crisis of making it impossible to curtail the excessive corruption that took place within the subsidy regime in Nigeria that has made it impossible for government to continue will have been averted. So it requires the supervision, and I hope the president will have the energy, the time, to supervise over these very critical sectors. And at the end of the day, I assure Nigeria is going to be the better for it. We need the endurance. We need, to put up all the efforts that we have. So that we can encourage this government to be able to take us to the promised land. It's a very difficult scenario, but I think the cabinet has shown beyond doubt that it can go beyond party lines. It can also go beyond interests of specific individuals, so as to reflect on what is the dominant expectations and desires of the generality of the people, and then go for it. And then end of the day, that's what governance means. That's what democracy means, and I hope we are going to get there.
Yes, indeed. Most people are expecting the president to be on top of the situation, and including what the ministers are doing, and still talking about the blue economy. It is one area that has been neglected by subsequent governments in Nigeria, and according to research, $1.5 trillion per year. Globally, that's what it can get for a country that has invested in the blue economy, and it provides over 30 million jobs and supplies a vital source of protein, which is fish that we need. Nigerians love fish, actually, and it's an economy that has been largely untapped. Now let's look at the issue of what can be gotten from the blue economy, and that is, somebody is saying that, some experts are also saying that the federal government can facilitate the establishment of a private sector driven new shipping line. Is that a possibility in this country?
Well, I hope we are not going the way of the Nigeria Air, the ill-fated Nigeria Air that started at the beginning of the Buhari administration, only terminated on the last day when an Ethiopian airline flew into Abuja. And, the rest is now history. Yes, we require, a shippers line. I grew up as a graduate in this country, and there was a Nigerian National Shipping Line. And we understood very clearly, the role that has served, not just in terms of generating employment or generating incomes to the Nigerian state. But of course, even the trouble that we face with our territorial waters, I think, is one area that this ministry will now have to delve in. You remember the crisis in the onshore-offshore dichotomy, where up till now the debate has been on the issue of nautical miles and things like that. Yes, it's quite a virgin area which was more or less neglected. It was neglected because, people tell you that Nigeria suffers from what is called resource costs. We have abundance of everything. It's only in Nigeria that you eat mango and you throw, the peel, and after a few years, people will be eating from it. In some climes across the globe, you require to put up certain basic conditions before you can grow mango. You can grow, any of these things. But we are so blessed. And this blessing at the end of the day has turned it a cost that we have so much within our country, we are unable to even look at them because we are, satisfied with the little that we have or with the lot that we have in one area or the other. So I share your view, Juma, and I share the views of the rest of Nigerians that this, blue economy that exists there is a huge area, is a huge potential that if properly put into use and, tapped, at the end of the day, it's going to create a lot of jobs. It's going to, generate a lot of incomes for Nigeria. It's also going to contribute greatly in, guarding our territorial waters, to the extent that the current crisis of incursions, and confusion that we have in the high seas there is strategically avoided. So I think it's the way to go, and that's why I said there are many more areas, of competence. There are many more areas that have been broken up, that have been opened up, so that Nigerians can, clearly tap on these areas and then create jobs, open up the economy and do quite a lot of things. I do hope sincerely that the ministers will not see themselves as simply, pampered public officials that will be there only to be, driving in convoys, attending functions, and so meetings and so on and so on, without necessarily exhausting their, intellectual capacities and tapping on all the resources at their disposal. So as the Minister of the Federal Republic, you have the capacity to garner resources from the length and breadth of this country that are related or relevant in the areas of your service, so that you can be able to exploit this situation with a view, to providing the goods. I mean, it's not a bad idea that in this new formation, such as the Ministry of Marine and Blue Economy, that you have a leadership that will be able to put a solid foundation, that can take a year, 2, 3, or even 4, so that at the end of the day, subsequent governments, subsequent ministers will be able to open up these places, for the necessary productivities and benefits that will accrue to the nation.
All right, Professor Mato, thank you. Again, we are asking, both of you to lead us on with the sectors that require critical attention. And Barrister Shittu here started up with that sector, marine and blue economy. You have also mentioned oil and gas. We will come to oil and gas presently. Just my last question on this marine economy. This blue growth economy was coined by the EU, I think sometime in 2012, and since then it's been adopted by various countries as an economic development tool, and it covers diverse areas within the marine ecosystem. It involves construction, shipbuilding, energy, so many areas, export, import, and all that. Yeah. And now that we've been clamoring for a shipping career, a national career, it's been long in coming. So is this an enormous task for the ministers, and what policy instruments do you think you should be pursuing? What should you be doing at the moment?
I believe that the often repeated statement that government has no business in business. We don't really, as a nation, as a government, we don't need to have a shipping line. What we need to do is to provide enabling environment for private sector in Nigeria to establish as many shipping lines as they like, shipping companies as they like. Of course, they'll be paying tax. When they are making profit, they'll be paying tax to government. That will be enough. Because usually government business is no man's business. We know what happened to Nigeria Air of old. We also know the recent attempt. A lot of money was sunk into it. More than 5 billion was sunk into it, and nothing has come out of it. So for me, what's important is we have enough business, people with business acumen in Nigeria. Let government provide the enabling environment for more private individuals or companies to, enter into the shipping business. Of course, we need to do a whole lot also in the agri sector. There's nothing you grow in this country that will not grow, and there's nothing that you produce that does not have a market waiting for it at the international level. If we are able to add value to all the agricultural products that we have in this country, these shipping lines, shipping companies will have a lot of business to do in carrying these products to the international.
A lot of people, Jumai, I don't know if you have a fishing pond. A lot of Nigerians are now going into
exactly. So many more people should be encouraged to go into fishing and various sectors. For instance, we have not reached the optimum in agri production in Nigeria.
At all.
If you travel from one city to the other, you see hundreds of thousands of acres of land lying waste. Nobody is touching them. And these are part of the, part of the gift that God has, given to us as Nigeria. So we need many more people to go into agri. When you say a lot of people saying they are jobless, if they can do proper thinking, with due respect to everyone, and if government itself would come handy to provide incentives for more people to go into agri. Today, every year, we have more than 20 universities of agriculture. Yes. Apart from the specified universities of agri, you also have virtually every other university, producing graduates of agri. These people come out and start going about looking for jobs.
Now you have taken us to agri. I was hoping that we'll talk oil and gas.
They're looking for jobs. These are trained farmers.
Yes.
And yet, they are not encouraged to go into farming.
They are looking even in secondary school, we had our farms.
Farms, exactly. School farms and all of that.
Yes, school farms.
So I think government must do much more. And I'm happy the senator posted to agri. I hope he would get the best ideas from across this country and encourage people to really go back. If I have my way, all agri graduates on a yearly basis, I'll give instruction that none of them should be given any white-collar jobs. Let us give them training in some form of entrepreneurship, and let us provide them with land and all the support they will need to go back to the farm.
Yes,
they will become better rich men than going to look for independent than going to look for 50,000 naira, salary their job at the end of the month. They must be exposed.
Barrister, when you call it farm, you make it look too traditional. These days, the youth mentality, the green skills, it's known as agripreneur.
Exactly.
Yes, the agripreneur.
We need to do much more for this.
Yes. I remember one time. Yes, I remember one time we were discussing agriculture and all that, and I think we joined somebody from Japan, and he talked about how they are keen into the Japanese style of farming and getting a lot of money. And just yesterday I was having a discussion with a friend, and he said his son is a graduate of agriculture. He met him and told him he doesn't need a job. Give me money to start farming. He gave him 250,000. Now he's raking in millions. He told me he was able to buy a car of 5 point something million. The interest should be there first.
Yes,
there should be interest, because the Buhari administration sunk a lot of money into the agri sector, and practically we're not seeing anything.
Incidentally, Barrister, a lot more of our youth are going into agri business.
I've started mine,
and that's quite encouraging. So a lot now depends on the government to provide the enabling environment to move to move it from farming. Yes, to move it from farming, the rudimentary method of farming to mechanized farming, and even green skill farming, because these days you don't even need a lot of space to grow your Barrister Shitu, we just keep you on hold.
Please, if you allow me.
Yes, just a few seconds before we take our break.
Okay.
No, go ahead.
Okay, you see, during our lowest time, he established farm settlements. So all those who went to School of Agric Akure, after leaving, they were drafted to farm settlements. And they were making money, and the government was also making a lot of money. Why can't we do something similar now?
All right, that's the challenge for the Minister of Agric, the new Minister of Agric. Of course, when he's eventually sworn in, a lot of issues, a lot of responsibilities.
You know, we're beginning to wind down. You raised some pertinent questions on agriculture.
Yes.
When oil was discovered, we moved and abandoned agriculture and moved towards oil. How can we rejig that system? Money has been put in. What can help the determination of our youth to think towards agriculture and tap into that potential itself?
Well, I think the starting point now is, apart from the traditional, perhaps uneducated farmers who are, doing subsistence farming, we have, I believe we will, as of today, if you take the statistics, you have more than 1 million graduates of agriculture from all the universities all across this country. These are trained farmers. They don't need any new training to go into farming. All that they need is to be incentivized. Give them land, give them the implements, some financial assistance and all of that, and task them and task all government agencies. No graduate of agri should be given any white-collar job. They are trained to become farmers. They have finished their training. These are the support that government is giving. Chief Harlow did that very successfully through farm settlements. And unfortunately, the farm settlements have been abandoned. If agri graduates know that they have better potential as practical or practicing farmers, they will never venture into white-collar farming because they would, within the shortest possible time, become multimillionaires. Again, through export-import, they will also be able to sell their products, at the international market. So I think this should be a task that the new Minister of Agri should seek for new ideas, for fresh initiatives to embark on as a national project with target, and perhaps we also need to establish, boards, for, commercially exporting these products. I believe this will be a starting point. If you are able to do that, you will take millions of people from the unemployment, market, at least people. And if you are talking of agri too, it's not only about, it includes animal husbandry, it includes, poultry, it includes, production of several other food items. And what says most, what is dear most to every individual is food. Food is number one thing.
Is that why the president declared a state of emergency on food security?
Well, it has been there. I don't know the content of his response to the problem of, lack of food. Of course, the issue of insecurity has also affected the availability of food, particularly in the northern part of.
Barrister Shittu, let's thank you for the points that you have raised with regards to agriculture. I'm sure the ministers designate and their aides are taking notes. They're watching this program. You can rest assured. But let's bring in Professor Mato. Professor Mato, earlier on you talked about oil and gas ministries. Now we have Ekperikpe, taking charge of gas, and we have Henneken Lokbubiri in charge of oil. Let's take a look at gas and the statistics or the indices in that area for Nigeria is amazing. 208. I'm not sure this is correct, but that's what the research has given. 208.83 trillion cubic feet. That's what Nigeria has. That should last a lifetime of 94 years. It consists of 32% of Africa's total gas, making Nigeria a very, gas-rich nation. What can the new minister do with this reserve?
Well, thank you very much. I think it's not a new story. It's been there for a very long time. We have more gas in Nigeria than we have the deposit of oil. But the attention of government has not been there because we have already established sufficient infrastructure for the exploitation of crude oil and so on and so forth. With this creation or with this division of the Ministry of Petroleum Resources into two, I think it is a clear indication on the part of government that we need to go gas. And, like I did say earlier on, the crisis in Europe between Russia and Ukraine is a testimony to the fact that, gas is an essential commodity in the global industrial market. And therefore, anyone that has it, needs to make effective use of it in order to realize the full potentials that are in there. Not necessarily that. If you there is this current gas pipeline that moves from Ajakuta, Kaduna, Kano, and hopefully, like the president was saying recently, I read somewhere the president is saying is looking forward to calling on the European investors to come so that they can develop the gas resources and gas pipeline so that we can, supply gas to Europe. That's the way to go. That's what we've been trying to do. I mean, what governments should ordinarily pay attention to, a long time ago. It's better it's coming now. It's better late than never. And I do hope that, these investors are found, but then I'm sure investors will not want to come in unless the seriousness of the political class is clear on the table, that they will be supported, and government is also ready to make its own share of investment in order to ensure, the gas resources of Nigeria are fully exploited and marketed. By the time this is realized, I tell you that oil or petroleum will play the second fiddle as far as energy politics, and economics in Nigeria and global community is concerned. So it's a way to go. But let me take a little, diversion from this point of view and also speak about what Mr. Shitu was talking about in the area of agriculture when he says that we should deny all graduates of agriculture employment or so-called white-collar jobs. I think that's not possible. We still require them, in the banking sector to make, preliminary studies and recommendations for facilities to those who will be farmers or to those who are into the area of agriculture. That's one. Secondly, we also require them in the bureaucracy because they have to man the strategic areas in the Ministry of Agriculture and related areas so that efficient and effective policies regarding agriculture, actually formulated at the level of government. So the question of agriculture, in my view, requires a kind of, public relations and conscientization of the general, psyche of the Nigerian people so that we can see agriculture as the best alternative to, these wild chase goods that everybody is into. Agriculture remains, but we have to have specifically, targeted policies on the part of government. Now, the President Buhari administration came up with the issue of Anko Borough program. I tell you, I became Commissioner of Agriculture in Kaduna at a time when the loan was mature, and the first batch of this Anko Borough thing, and see the absolute disconnect between those who are supposed to be beneficiaries of this facility and the state. When people believe that any such support that they get from government is their own part of the legis, when they see public officials as blatantly, corrupt, then when they have access to this type of facilities, they are unable to utilize it for the purpose to which it is given. And at the end of the day, is the tragedy that we are facing today. Billions of naira has been spent in that area, and what we saw at the end of the day was, a caricature that was called, rice pyramid in Abuja, maize pyramid in Kaduna, that did not actually translate into anything sensible. So I think we need to be really more serious, focused, and honest about whatever we do in the area of agriculture. And without it, China is today one of the greatest economies on the world because it's able to feed itself. Every other country in Europe and the United States of America is able to feed itself, and that's why they're able to build their industrial capacities and become the nations that they are today. If we are unable to invest in agriculture, encourage our young people to take it as a humble profession. I mean, by our local, communal stereotypes, when they say you're a farmer, it simply depicts a poor man in you. And no girl, as a young man, no girl would like to marry a farmer. Not as it used to be in those days. When they say he's a lecturer, and everybody will say nobody wants to be a lecturer. Now, that's one area clear. Another major and important area in this creation is the area of Ministry of Art, Culture, and Entertainment Economy. We're not looking at that area. That's another oil boom area. If properly harnessed, if properly put together and governed, I assure you that a lot of Nigerian talents that are going haywire all over the places, uncoordinated.
Yes. Professor Mato, thank you for taking us to tourism. I'm sure we will get to that. Let me bring the conversation here because we were talking about oil and gas, which has been separated, so they're not two different ministries, and we're looking at gas. Under the Ministry of Petroleum. Yes. But we're looking at our gas reserves, and Professor Mato rightly said it's not a new story. We've known it ab initio. During the lifespan of the immediate past administration, a national gas expansion program, was created to expand, gas utilization in different areas, and conversation started on auto gas conversion, and suddenly, we hear nothing about it. I don't even know if that NGEP is still, was funded or if it's still in existence. But right now, there's conversation, ongoing now. The new president, Tinubu, has already kickstarted. What are potential in this regard?
Well, even if we didn't want to be serious on utilization of gas, the recent removal of subsidy on oil makes it more imperative, critically imperative for us.
Precisely.
Because what petrol, since petrol is getting out of affordability, gas would certainly come in, because gas does not need, refining overseas, to incur costs of transportation, licensing, insurance and all of that. So I think government should be more serious on the conversion of gas for purpose of lighting, lighting our environment, our homes, our environment, for the purpose of cooking, instead of even, kerosene. Gas would do it much cheaper. Using it for driving our cars, we should try and convert our cars for gas utilization, so that the cost of petrol would, the burden on off would be. So there's hardly anything that you want to do by way of energy that gas will not do. Much more than petrol, much more than kerosene and all of that. So that imperative you should push government to take a more serious approach about the gas business. That's
another critical ministry.
And I'm very happy that the fact that there's a Minister of State for gas specifically, symbolizes seriousness on the part of government as to the attention we should be putting on gas.
Just briefly, what about what do we need to do? Just recently, our revenue dropped by some 200 billion naira as a result of a drop in oil production, oil output. What responsibility
well, you recall that over the last 50, 60 years, over the last 50, 60 years, we were not even thinking of utilization or export of gas. We were just flaring it, burning it. Now, with the realization of its potential, that is reducing. Of course, we will need a much larger investment to, make it immediately available, to retrieve it from being burned. Of course, in the oil sector, whether we like it or we will still need to utilize, petrol, because we need a lot of time to really be able to properly harness gas, you know, store it, you know, avoid it being flared and all of that. So, and in any case, so many other countries who do not have gas would continue to rely on petrol. So we will still need to be exporting petrol, not for purpose of local consumption, but for the purpose of international usage, so that we make money from that and on the home front.
But we have challenges. We have challenges with refinery. We have challenges with production.
It's a pity that, I mean, if we had, you know, local refineries, there would be no issue of subsidy, not to talk of it being removed.
Okay, let's briefly bring in Kabir Mato before we were rounding up in 1 minute. Can you tell us, you know, just last night we got the press release of some minor reshufflement in the cabinet, and a lot of people are saying that the president is a listening president. He has been listening to Nigerians as they talked about the placement of ministers. Is he putting round pegs and round holes now?
I think so, Jume, and that's as far as I'm concerned, that's a big plus. That's a lot of credibility on the part of the president. It's not enough for you simply because you take a decision, you're a president or you're a governor, and you later on are reminded that this decision is faulty here or there, and then you say you stick to it because you are a president or not. The art of, you know, an effective leadership is the ability to succumb yourself to superior positions, to superior argument whenever they are made. So I want to think that, you know, I differ very, very radically with all those who think, and I don't mind that even if today after the inauguration and the president finds that, you know, some ministers are not supposed to be where they are, they should be somewhere else, I think they should go. And I also like to encourage the president to make it a matter of attitude, that somebody should not go and stay in one ministry for God's sake for 4 years, even if he is or she is not performing. I think the president must have a yardstick of measuring and then, you know, moving his ministers around so that they can also be versatile. It's not ideal. So the decision to, you know, to change some, you know, postings, as far as I'm concerned, only exhibited the kind of presidency that we have and what we expect. And I think it's also very important going forward that anytime a decision is taken and that the realization that that decision is not in the best interest, you know, of the polity or the government or the community, you know, the president should reverse that decision, and so also should apply to every other political leader. That's political sophistication, that's political maturity, and that's the way to go. Not to stick to your position, even if your position is, you know, on the wrong side.
Okay,
go ahead.
Professor Kabir Mato, thank you so much. You've raised some pertinent issues there, and this is a continuing conversation, I believe, and we thank you so much for your contribution to this topic. So much for coming on Good Morning Nigeria. Professor Kabir Mato, a political analyst. We also had in the studio the former Minister of Communication, Barrister Adebayo Shitu, who has brought in his wealth of experience being in the office of a minister, and you know, he has touched a lot of issues, the green blue economy, agriculture, and so on. I believe in the next conversation we'll be able to talk about other ministries and the tasks ahead for them.
And in sports, over the weekend, of course, I call them the Spaniards of Spain, defeated the Lioness of England by a lone goal to lift the female World Cup, I think, for the first time. And indeed, there was a report that said that Spain's president of the Federation of Sports in Spain had to give a mouth-to-mouth kiss, you know, and that led to some.
We'll get all that in sports updates. Don't go away. Okay, it seems we've run out of time, and that's Good Morning Nigeria for today. Thank you so much for being part of it. I am Jumai Yusuf.
All right, I am Claire Adelabu Abdul-Razak. We're sorry we aren't able to bring you our sports package. We hope to do that tomorrow. From all of us here in the studio.